This video is all about my own personal favourite top 5 motorcycle builds. Cafe Racer, Scrambler, Brat Style, really doesn't matter for this video. I've chosen 5 that I think look and work really well. As you can imagine, there's a whole world of builders and bikes out there, so coming up to this top 5 was a pretty hard decision of mine. I've gone with my gut instinct and what I feel is my own personal top 5. Now of course this is going to change for everyone out there, so whatever your top 5 is, then please leave a note below and I'll definitely have a look at them. I've tried to create a good selection of bikes, so we have Cafe Racer, we have Scramblers, we have Brat in there, all sorts. So hopefully there should be a bike that caters for absolutely everyone out there. Some builds you'll see have had a lot spent on them, others not so much, but it really doesn't matter. To get that look and that bike that you're proud of, it doesn't matter how much you spend, whether you spend £1,000 or £10,000. So hopefully my selection will go to show that. So first on the list is LA-based builder JTEC MOTO. I absolutely love his Virago and his take on the XV750. It's an absolutely stunning bike. It shows what you can do with simplicity and a bit of hidden extra once you start looking into the finer details of things. And what I like especially about this bike is that he's taken his inspiration from an old Ford's GT40 and brought these elements of inspiration into his bike, so it's sort of a homage to that car. His use of colours are absolutely fantastic here. I love the fact that he's got an orange frame underneath that blue tank and you can just see bits of it sticking out here and there. And when you start to look a bit closer, you can see, like I said, the hints of the GT40. So you've got the fuel cap on the top of the tank, which is obviously an inspiration to the car. And final little detail, so you've got these beautiful shocks, the way he's created the frame under the seat and the single monoshock. It all works really nicely on this build. Secondly is the BMW K7 by the Foundry MC. This bike is complete polar opposite to the Virago from JTEC MOTO. This is an absolute brute. Don't get me wrong, the Virago looks a heck of a bike, but this has just got a complete brutalist approach to it. You've got these massive chunky tyres on, and again, the blue frame going away from the standard black frame, so you can kind of see where I'm going with this frame thing. Underneath that tank you can follow the blue line of the frame going up to the top of the triple trees, and that's what I love about it. It's just that attention to detail and looking at all the lines completely once the bike is done, rather than just welding a frame as and where you think it's going to be needed. It's taking that whole concept from start to finish. As well, with it being such an angular frame, they've replicated that through the use of the tank. And honestly, a Scrambler, this bike is one of my favourites, and the colour scheme goes well with the whole BMW brand. To date, this is one of my favourite Scrambler builds, purely because of the pure insanity behind the look of it. Third on my list, my favourite, Blitz Motorcycles. These guys can do no wrong in my book. As I said before, what they do is they take old bikes, part restore them, put new bits on them, but keep original tanks and keep flaky paintwork. So at a distance these bikes may look a bit worn and you can see a bit of history, but when you look closer you can see the finer details. So they have these beautiful shocks on the back of this bike, complete with the bright red sparklies that just add that hint of colour onto it that I think it needs against this whole black bottom half, the black wheels. It's a lovely use of the Brat Style seat in the back here. They're not going too much into the Cafe Racer scene, they're going more Brat with these bikes. And this little seat on the back here is just proportionally correct to this bike. It's enough to hold your bum in place, and then it's enough to just complete the look of the bike and let that back end just hang out just a little bit more than what it should be. It looks so good. Fourth on my list has to be there has to be a Honda CX500 on there, and this is Sasha Lucky, I hope I've got his name right, his CX500. The concept behind this bike is that he was in love with the shape of the engine. Of course it's a twin V engine, and that's the reason I fell in love with this bike as well. I absolutely love the shape of those, the way that the V's stick out at 8-degree angles, and his thought was that he wanted the whole focus to be on this engine and that the bike was actually wrapped around the engine rather than the engine being held inside the bike. So it's a very minimalist approach. He's stripped down the entire back end, created that monoshock version that everyone is raving about at the moment, the CX500s. But what he's also done is strengthened that rear swing arm, obviously, to take the monoshock. And he's got these bright red forks on the front. So the whole mix of colours here just work fantastic together. You've got the black engine offset by the red front forks. It just works well. And this bike has had no money spared on it. The yoke, the triple tree at the front, is finely carved. Got all these little high-tech bits in it that when you start looking into the bike, you can see how much he's actually spent. It's a perfect example of a CX500, which is part of the reason I didn't really want to go with a monoshock myself, is I don't think that a bike can perfect this. It can go one step further. I think this is the top of the CX500 chain, so hats off to you there. And last is this Blue Shark. If you haven't heard of this bike, check it out. It's absolutely amazing. Now there's going to be a lot of purists out there. Obviously being a Ducati, there's going to be a lot of Ducati purists who don't think that you should take a new bike and modify it. I don't see anything wrong with it. I love taking old bikes and giving old bikes new leases of life. But to take a brand new bike is courageous as hell. But what they've come out with here is absolutely fantastic. I've read a few comments of people absolutely hating this. And I guess I can see where some people are coming from, that they shouldn't take a bike that's already beautiful and do some more work on. But I think their ethos for this build was that it was going to go one or two ways. They were either going to create a beautiful build, they were going to improve on what was already beautiful, or it was just going to look worse. So they're going to damage the look of it. Again, with my emphasis on colour schemes, they have 4 colours working on this really nicely. Silver being a colour in my book. They have the silver, the blue, and they have that beautiful brown seat as well. It all just works well together. And the stainless steel pipe, the way that they've got that fed under the engine and then it goes back up to the top and under the seat and then branches out at the sides. So much thought has been put into that. It's unreal. So this is my top 5 builds, and I'd love to hear what other people think their top 5 is, so please leave a list below here and I'll certainly check them out. So coming next week is more of the CX500 build. I've ordered more parts for that. I've got the parts for the GS550 coming in as well, so we're going to get that bike back to life and hopefully on the road. If you want to see those 2 videos, then please subscribe and I'll put some more content on next week.